Let us start.
All right.
Welcome. Good morning.
Good day.
It
Good
sounded like-
afternoon.
it actually sounded like he was going to say
I
good
was
morning.
going to say good morning. I blew it. Okay, I'm sorry. What were you going to say?
Welcome for being. Welcome. Welcome for being here. Thank you for being here.
What the hell's going on?
We never get this right.
Okay. Welcome to Wholehearted Living Podcast with
Valerie.
and Bennie.
Yes, welcome. Thank you for being
We're
here.
very glad you're here with us, and we are complete dorks.
Oh my goodness. Maybe we should never introduce the podcast. We should just get right on in.
That's true. Okay, let's just stop doing that. That's not going to happen.
Hi,
we have to
Iggs.
say something. Iggy, how are you?
Hello.
Iggy, you have to be loud. No, well, not when
Hello.
you cough.
Oh, there you go.
Wow.
He
Iggy's
did
here.
that.
Thank
Hello.
you, Iggy, for keeping us in sound. We're glad you're here with us, folks.
Just so you know, that whole intro is staying in.
Oh, nice.
Oh, nice. Okay. Valerie Lynn, tell us some wonderful story. Or is it my turn?
Well, no, I wanted to tell you about why I have a cough drop in my mouth because it's not a cough drop. It's a throat. Well, I guess it's a cough drop, sore throat lozenge. I have a tickle in my throat that it's the funniest thing.
Yeah, it's hilarious so far.
I had spring break. I did not sneeze, cough, or have an itchy throat one time while I was out of school.
Wow.
Not once.
I'm going to journal that.
No, and I tell you this because the Monday I went back to work, I literally started sneezing, coughing, itchy eyes, tickle in my throat, and I realized we have all this shrubbery next to the doors that the classes that I actually work in, and I really do feel like whatever it is there is I'm allergic to, or whatever. The wind picks up and it hits me like. So this week,
You know what? I have to tell you, I stopped listening after you said the word shrubbery. Isn't that a funny word? Shrubbery.
do you ever?
I think that's so funny. No, I'm not.
Do you
I
ever
think it's a
wonder
funny
how
word.
people? Yeah, because don't you ever wonder why words are words like shrubbery?
You said all the shrubbery, and I was like, I stopped listening. I was like, that is the funniest word in the world.
Well, then
Okay.
you're going to get a really good kick out of my topic today about
Okay.
listening.
Well, before we do the topic, what are we going to talk about? Oh, no. I guess we're supposed to have some kind of fun story.
Oh, no, that wasn't. No, I was just saying how awesome it was to be on spring break. And I'm like,
And not
oh, my
be sick.
allergies are gone this spring. I'm done. I'm fine. And then I go back to school. I'm allergic to work.
I'm allergic to work, that's for sure. No,
it's just,
true.
it really hit me. And then they mow the lawn. And my class that I work in is right outside the
Shrubbery.
schoolyard where the grass area, and they mow the lawn, and it's not kind of the lawn that they pick up the grass, the lawnmower, they leave it on the ground.
All right.
And then the wind picks up, and so it's like floating about the air. And
Did
that's
you just say floating about?
just floating about.
It's floating about the air. Oh my gosh, we're in an episode of Downton Abbey. Okay. Okay.
Well, anyway, so that's why I still all week long. Peter's like, "Oh my God, what happened? Like it hit you like a ton of bricks
No,
this week."
I actually, I'll never forget being in construction one time in Missouri. And I had to pick up something. What are those things called that go on the roof, Patty? That are like one big thing, so that you don't have to have posts. It's like they're like a triangle. Trellis. Okay, I'm going with that word. I don't know if that's accurate, so anybody in construction can correct us. But the idea is that these people had bought it. Like we didn't buy these trellises, and we didn't buy them. They bought them, and they bought them like way early, and so weeds had gone through them, and so they were like all covered up, like literally 3-foot grass and all that stuff. And then when it was finally time to build this barn or whatever, I had to start picking them up. I remember being on top of the walls trying to put these things up, and sneezing and breaking out like crazy. That must be a Gonzalez. Do you think Stephanie has that issue too?
I don't know if she does or not. I definitely do. I mean, obviously, I remember even doing yard work as a kid and breaking out,
Oh,
and
yeah.
mom saying, okay, you can come in and clean the
I've been
toilet.
at sports, and they would tell me that I couldn't. They would say you need to go take a shower immediately because whenever I played soccer and I slid tackle or did
Yep.
anything in the grass,
You get
it
like
was
the welts things.
Yeah,
Yep.
I would just go nuts. So yeah,
I don't know. That's interesting. We should ask Steph. I know that you and I both suffer from the seasonal allergy too, like the sneezing and all that kind of
Oh,
stuff. But
for
I don't know
sure.
if she does. I feel like she doesn't. I don't
Yeah.
know.
One day we're going to invite her. We're going to do a sibling podcast. We've talked about that. We don't know when. We don't really understand what the subject's going to be. That's why it hasn't happened.
Yeah.
But we want to do it. So, anywho, I started school this week. You know, I'm on 10 weeks and 3 weeks off, 10 weeks and 3 weeks off. And so this week was my first week of school. I will say I'm going to give a plug to somebody that doesn't give us any money, but Speechify. Such a cool thing.
I think you brought it up one other time, and
Oh,
it is
I
a
might
really
have.
cool thing. Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
it is so amazing because I'm able to keep up with my reading without having to read.
Yeah. Yeah.
Honestly, I listen to it so much.
Yeah.
And it is absolutely amazing to be able to listen to it while I'm on my walk.
Oh
or-
yeah, I think you were saying that you took a break from either the class or a client or something, and you came in to make lunch, and you were able to listen to
and
it.
I
Yeah.
just listened to it during that time, and then I usually listen to it on my phone because I can carry that around anywhere, and well, I can carry my iPad too, but I mean, when I'm on my walk, I don't take my iPad, but I will use my iPad, and then while it's reading to me, I can mark things, but you know how I don't know if this is true for you. But especially when I'm reading all this stuff that's so clinical, it's very easy for me to kind of go into
Zone out. Yeah.
I kind of go into somewhere else. Or you just want to get up to go to the bathroom or you want to get some water. Well, it just keeps reading.
Yeah.
It doesn't stop. So then you just come back and you're able to go. And so it just gets you through it. And
Yeah.
there's certain things that, quite frankly, this isn't going to be comforting to anybody that I might do therapy with. But there's some
But I
things
just go over. I just fast
I
forward.
just go fast because especially when it has to do with research. I confess, I don't get motivated by research. I get, I mean, I like the conclusions that the research says, but half of the paper is telling you who the group were that they did, the system and the methodology that they used to do it. And then the different kinds of, well, in the case of what I'm studying right now, is the different medications that they were using for different kinds of people, and the combined with this, I'm thinking, I don't care how much I read that or study it, I'm not going to memorize it. I'm so horrible with memory, and there's no way, and I am not that interested.
Oh, see, that would fascinate me.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, well, take a class.
That's no. I actually like the research base out of like things that I read more than like.
You like to know, like, okay, there's 500 people in this particular group, and there's 300 of these people and 200 of these people, and these people were excluded because of this reason?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my God. I could so care less. Why do you care about that? What does it mean?
That it was actually like trialed. You know what I mean? Like I actually like to know. Like this isn't really just a thought or opinion. This was actually researched with that group of people or whatever. Yeah. Or like
I guess that, well, obviously it means something to some people because otherwise these people wouldn't be published and I wouldn't, you know, I haven't been published.
I mean, I'm not saying that, you know, oh, that's what I look forward to, but I'm just saying, no, when I get to that part of stuff, it fascinates me. So I do. But then again, I'm not in school and it's not something that I'm having to read all the time or learn all the time. These are things that I pick up and want to know about. You know what I mean?
Oh, I see.
You know, I don't know. So maybe that makes a
Yeah,
difference.
because we live in California and because I'm going to be a therapist in California, therapy is unlike life coaching, which I counsel or do life coaching, with people all over the world. In therapy, I can only do it with people in California. And so you have to live by the rules
in
of California.
right?
And California requires certain classes. All my student colleagues, you know, that are taking these classes, they do not have to take this course I'm in right now. It's pharmacology. Is that right? Yeah. And anyway, I am not a big fan because it's a lot of rote memory. It's a lot of trying to remember stuff, and I am horrible.
Well, that's the other thing is I don't necessarily have to remember it to test on it. I just hear it and I find it fascinating to learn it, but I don't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's fun.
So, yeah. Well, fun is a relative term. We should probably have a podcast on that because if you have fun doing that, I have fun going down water slides. Okay.
That's true. Well, you know what's interesting?
I think that ants are interesting.
Oh, you do?
Well, you just asked a question. I think I don't understand why we could have ant traps for 655 generations. You move them once, and all of a sudden they all appear again.
Well, you don't even have to put an ant trap. You could just put like a thing of butter out.
No. I'm saying the ant trap is to kill them. And then when you remove, we don't put ant traps out because we enjoy their company. So it's like, hey, an ant hotel. We put the ant trap so that they'll die. And I'm saying that once we remove them, then all of a sudden there's a gazillion more ants. You're so funny. You don't even have to put an ant trap if you want to see them. Just put butter.
Do you want to hear a funny story? I'm going to
that
tell
was
you
funny.
This.
I don't think you have to say anything else.
Nicole, this is going to be, I don't know if Nicole's going to be happy I'm sharing this, but I'm going to share it anyway. They found they found a mouse in their house. And so, this is what's funny is they caught it and they were like, okay, we're going to take it outside and let it go. We're not going to kill it. We're going to just put it out, let it go wander somewhere else. It found its way back to the house.
What do you mean they found it? How did they know? Did they put a collar on it? It's like, hey, it's Steve.
She said because there was no other ant. Well, I mean, to be honest with you, I don't know. But here's what she did. She started Googling. And she's like, does this mean...
Oh, my gosh, this guy's famous.
Does it mean...
No, sorry. It's famous
Mickey. No, she was like, does this mean there's family? Like, why do we see another one again? Like, what happened? Like, is there a family here? Do we need to, like, whatever? And it said verbatim that if you find a mouse and you let it go, you need to take it miles away from your house because if you don't, it will find your house again. Because it liked where it was eating or whatever. And what happened was they have in their back room, it's like a sunroom, and that's where their trap is to go downstairs, under the house.
Oh, okay.
They also had the bird cage there, and the bird was dropping all the whatever. So it was coming up, getting food, and then leaving. Coming up, getting food. Well, then when they moved the bird cage, it was like, wait, where's our food? So it started going through the house, and then that's when they found it. So they think because it was had such accessibility to that food, it did come back because it was explicit with if you find a mouse and let it go, you cannot just let it go outside your house. You need to take it miles away. Okay. And so
they say that about a lot of animals.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Well,
so this is what's so funny. She goes, it made its way back, and she goes, I don't know if I should have, I didn't want to kill it, but I didn't know. And I go, knowing you, Nicole, I said, you are such she just loves life. She doesn't want to kill a ant or a spider, and I'm the same way. If I can get the spider by the leg and take it outside, I'll do that.
Me too.
But so anyway, she's like, I go, God, Nicole, knowing you're just going to end up making it a pet or whatever. She goes, watch me start Googling like mouse houses and little like a hamster wheel for mice,
Yeah. Well, we had a rat. Did you know we had a rat for a long time?
No.
We bought it. It was actually a pedigree rat.
Oh my.
Yeah.
See, that freaks me out. Like a little mice is something, but a rat is
and sometimes they call it a mouse. But but
a little mice or
a
a
little
mouse?
mice, yeah, a little mouse. But anyway, we had a rat, and our rat was a gray rat. Did it have blue eyes? I can't remember. Oh, it didn't. And but anyway, very cool rat. Such a cool rat. We would actually let it run around the house, and it would run and hang around us. It was such a cool little animal. Wasn't it a cool animal? We really, really liked it.
Oh.
Well, they lived like 2 years or something.
Oh.
It died, so we bought another one. Oh my God. The second one had cancerous things. Its eyeball was popping out. We thought there was something wrong with it. We got it another one. They like to eat on each other.
Oh God.
It was one of the most horrible experiences ever. So they both went. So yeah, we thought it needed a friend because it was like it was emotionally disturbed. If you listen to the last podcast, it needed therapy. And so there were 20 years in between? Oh, my wife is correcting me. It was 20 years in between. It doesn't matter. The second one was not pedigree. He was horrible. He was a horrible rat and had all these. It was a horrible experience. So at that point, I don't know why we decided to get a second one after the first one was so horrible. But we did, and it was just a bad time. And this is a completely irrelevant conversation to wholehearted living. So anyway,
Just get a dog instead.
yeah, that's what we did. We put the dog in there with them. Little tiny dog.
Okay, well, listen.
No.
This is funny. We were talking just in our little preamble about studies and stuff like this.
Yeah.
There was a professor from Harvard University
Mm-hmm.
who, he personally didn't do this 86-year-long study, but there was a study for 86 long years through the various classes of Harvard University.
I would imagine, because if he did the 86
No,
years
he would
study,
be-
he would be like 140
Yeah,
years old.
yeah. And so it was a study on happiness.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yep. What was this?
Dum,
What,
dum,
what,
bum, bum, bum.
is it the end?
No, so anyway, it was about what makes a good life, and they were talking about happiness. And so I did mention in the podcast, our last podcast about relationships and stuff like that, that was the core, the bottom line through this 86-year-long study of happiness. What was the core, what was the common factor was having relationships, being relational. And it didn't
So
have
let's backtrack. So the 86-year study studied certain people to find who was the happiest, and then they discovered that the happiest people were people who had relationships.
Yes. And so there was a lot of stuff that I read about, but I'm going to take a couple of the key points away. So they did ask within the study I think they asked every single person that they did the study with through these 86 years, what are the things that you most regret? Give me two things that you regret, as they were maybe very later on in life, or, I don't want to say deathbed, but like very, very later on in life. And, the two things that were most regretted, that were the most commonly said, were, I wish I hadn't spent so much time at work. That was actually the number one regret.
I was going to say that,
Yeah.
actually.
I wish I hadn't spent so much time at work. And the second one, which was mostly women, where they wish they didn't spend so much time worrying about what other people think. And so those were the two common.
So in the first one, I'm curious, that was mostly men. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it did say that
Nobody goes to the graves thinking, man, I wish I would have worked more.
Yeah, and I guess there's a quote that he quoted, and I'm not sure if it was him that said it or did I write it? I don't remember who said it, but it was a quote that he said that no one remembers how many hours you put in at work, how much overtime you put in at work, except your children. And so it was very profound, because you think back on it, you're like, is there people going to walk around going, oh my gosh, I remember how many hours he put in. Oh my gosh, I remember. No,
Right.
But your kids will know how much you were gone.
Well, I even think of our dad. The fact of the matter is that, but here's the problem with this, is that it's always hindsight, ¿no es cierto? That
It is hindsight.
I just said spoke Spanish. I'm sorry about that. It's always hindsight where someone recognizes that they're doing something wrong, right? And so it's at their deathbed that they realize it. Because I look at our dad, and I can't deny the fact that what he really believed he was doing was providing us the best life, because he was giving us enough money to be able to live in a permanent home. We were able to do the necessary things. We didn't have like the freedom to do any kind of money. I remember sharing fries and that kind of stuff when we went out to eat, if we went out to eat.
Right.
But he made it so that mom could stay home, which was one of mom's only I'm putting my foot down thing on. And so, but I wonder, it would be interesting topic. Do you think we could ever have dad on our podcast? Because if we ever had dad on our podcast.
I think there's different people. I think there's different.
Do you think dad would be comfortable talking into a mic?
Well, I was going to say, I think there's different people, and we could ask dad about this. I think that would actually be a good conversation, but, or a lecture. I don't know. But, no, what I was going to say was, I think, first of all, if you're going to talk about that, I think going back into that generation, it was a lot looked at like that. And I think as generations have gone on, I think that kind of in your generation, where it's more like, it's very important to be around family, but I also have to provide for the family. And now you just take it even another like generation, like thinking about my kids who are raising families or family, that it's even more important that dad's involved. Now you even have paternity leave, where back in the day there wasn't paternity
that was
leave.
unheard of.
Yes. And so now I think that people are realizing that dad should be there from the get-go for a while but you know, I
But
think
I
we
would
can
even say me.
I think we could even say this for women, especially now.
Yes.
More women are working more and more and more versus back in the day when our mom stayed home.
Oh, for sure.
And they are missing out on a lot of life happenings with their children because they either have to work or they really like their career. And either way, their child is going to be the one that remembers that they
weren't there.
Right.
Right. Well, and I don't want to dismiss the fact that some women truly want to work and they
Yeah.
want to be home.
Yeah.
And I think that there's, honestly, I think there's value in if they are able to be present when they are actually home.
Exactly.
Because if they're not, see, like in the case of Patty was we had a goal of her being a stay-at-home mom. During the kids' young years.
Yeah.
She was not a stay-at-home mom once they hit junior high or so or whatever it was.
Yeah.
But our mom was like, no. And even our mom was started working when we were in high school and stuff, because it wasn't like she was averse to working. She
Right.
just said, I want to be home when our kids are home.
Yep.
That was her
Yeah.
key thing. And what I am fascinated by are women who work at low wage income jobs, and all they're basically doing is paying for
A sitter.
childcare.
Yeah.
And in the end, it just creates more stress. It
Yeah.
creates more frustration. And then the kid is a little bit distressed too, because they sense the financial distress.
Yeah.
I always say, this is really funny. I always say kids and dogs are very similar.
They are.
And, have I already said this?
I don't know, but they are, because they can sense. They
Yeah. Oh my
immediately
God.
know when there's
How
like
do we know this? Yeah, but I've said this many times to
Yeah.
people is that if you well what I think is interesting is that if you come near a dog and you're uncomfortable with dogs, they immediately know it, and they actually act worse towards you than the person who's confident with dogs, because
babies do the same.
and babies do the same thing.
Yeah.
I would get around a baby and they'd immediately cry until your daughter, until Nicole.
Right.
With Nicole, I was comfortable.
Yeah.
I was like, I want this kid. I
Yeah.
want to be with this kid.
Right.
And then I will say, Patty had to teach me with Ashley, because I wouldn't look at Ashley's eyes. I was very comfortable holding Ashley, our oldest, but then I wouldn't look at her and she would cry. And Patty, I think it was that said, why don't you look at her? And I started looking at her, and all of a sudden things started to change. The point that I'm making, though, is that there's something to be said about being at peace with being connected to another individual.
Right. And I'm going to go on. Because the one thing that they said they were the most proudest with is relationships, whether it is a good friend, a good parent, a good mentor. That's the proudest moment they had. And he said, and we're talking about Harvard University graduates. We were talking about people that are very affluent in their community, or even, outside of the community. And the proudest moment, or the proudest part of them, was the relationships that they had. And so, I mean, that just says a lot.
Right.
Money cannot buy all of this. You know what I
Right.
mean? You can actually have a good, wholehearted life just by being a relational person. Now,
There's a lot of rich, lonely people. And I'm always fascinated by the fact, I remember asking Dad years ago when Johnny Carson was on TV. And if you remember Johnny Carson, don't get me wrong, I still listen to Johnny Carson on YouTube at time, and he's obviously influenced generations of people. He was back in the day when there was 3 TV channels and everybody watched Johnny Carson. The next day, not me, I was too young for that, but I still am fascinated by Johnny Carson. But I remember one day saying to Dad, do you think he's happy? I literally remember asking that. And he said, of course he's happy, because in Dad's mind, it was about the influence that he had, this notoriety that he had,
Right.
this ability to influence so many people. And I said, Dad, he's had, and I don't remember how many, but he had so many divorces. Do you remember how many divorces?
oh no,
he
I
had?
don't. I have no idea.
He had several divorces. Ego.
Iggy.
Ego.
Ego. Google it.
Jose and Eagle. Can you Google how many divorces Johnny Carson had? But he was divorced several times.
Yeah.
And people actually commented later. I've recently heard more things about it, but they said if he would have given the amount of time to his marriages that
Than
he
he
gave
did to his career.
the Tonight Show.
Yeah.
There's no question he would have one of the best marriages
Mm-hmm.
that ever existed. And so I don't know whether or not he was happy. Now that I'm older, in those days I would say I don't think he was happy, because to me I wanted a happy family.
Mm-hmm.
I really decided that I wanted a happy family more than anything else.
Yeah.
Ironically, what I do think is interesting that you're saying, though, is that when people are really in love with what they do, we all of a sudden find ourselves so enraptured by the fact that we get to make impact in whatever we're doing, that we and I would say this is classic for men, because men are very goal oriented. So the first goal is I want to get married and have a family. So once you complete it, meaning I do, now the next goal is let me be the biggest success in my career. And then what happens is that you can get lost in that and realize and forget about the fact that the whole reason why you wanted to get married wasn't just for the I do and the marriage certificate. You wanted a family.
Right.
And if you embrace that to the same degree, and here I was a pastor for years, but I would find myself lost in the church and achieving goals and growing and doing different things and not always recognizing that, you know what, I'm not present right now.
Yeah.
With my
See, and
family.
that's the other thing is like they talk a lot about being present in the moment and not thinking about the past, not thinking about the future, being in the moment. And there's like even exercises that they were talking about, like doing, how do you actually just try to stay in the moment? And I'm thinking about people who are even the people that like are thinking about what they want to say while you're talking, because they're not even in the moment listening to what you're saying. Like he was even just saying, like, you take these deep breaths, you listen, you what am I hearing right now? And if you can close your eyes, but like all of a sudden realize and tap into where you are at that very moment, and then bring yourself to the actual moment if you are with people, engage in that conversation versus just hearing and not really listening.
What's really funny about this is that, what I told you that I was going to do a different topic last session, our last podcast, and it was going to be on mindfulness. And one of the big things is breathing and becoming present and trying to figure out, how do I become, how do I connect with what is happening now?
In the moment. Yeah. And that's pivotal, especially for building a relationship. And again, these don't have to be relationships with, your partner, a spouse, or whatever. It could be a friend, it could be whatever, but it's very pivotal to be in the moment, because you don't want to just always be offering information. You also want to be able to receive it. You also want to be curious about that person, right? One of the things that they were talking about was, because it was saying like and this is what I brought up in the last podcast, some people have a hard time even trying to figure out how to build a relationship, whether it just be with a friend or whatever. And they said that you just need to make it a safe space for people. And what I found was very interesting, one of the examples they were giving was a toddler, like you take your kid to the park and the kid takes off running and you're just like, oh my gosh, I got to keep an eye on the kid. They're playing. But then this happened, I remember with my kids, it happened. I'm sure it probably happened with you guys, where they would just come run back and they would touch base. Like they would touch you by the leg or whatever.
Right.
And then they would just be like, are you having fun, sweetie? Yeah. And they would take off again. But then inevitably they would come back and touch base. And so that's the kind of relationship that you want to have with whoever else in your life you're having. You always want to be that safe person that they can come back and touch base with whenever needed.
Right.
Whenever needed.
And if you don't have kids, the point that I think you're really trying to make is that we still just want to be present in the current relationships that we have. I know for me, part of it has to do with, and I don't want to change subjects completely, but I think it's fair to say that now that I am what I now call sober, I'm way more present than I've ever been before. And part of that has to do with the way I perceive my jobs. And what's interesting is I have to be careful because, see, I really do see my jobs. I love what I do and I love helping people. That's the reason why I like doing life coaching and why I'm pursuing a degree in therapy, because I really do want to hopefully make a difference in people's lives. That's a significant goal of mine. But I don't live through those people. And when I'm done with it, other than the stresses that I might have for this and that, the real focus that I have is what is going on in my family with my wife and our relationships, and how do I make it so that we can that I can live right now
Right.
the best life that I want to live.
Right.
Because I can honestly tell you in the past, it was all about how do I achieve the next goal? How do I achieve the next goal? How do I achieve the next goal? Ashley, our oldest, is much like me in that she's very goal oriented. She's very focused on her goals. And I think she's better at recognizing when she makes impact now. She doesn't have kids yet, so it's a little bit different. But it is I don't know, I'm not going to speak for her, but I know that she's really focused on achieving her goals. And that's, I think, where we can get lost. Like you said, it doesn't even matter if it's about money.
Right.
It's about achieving your particular goal, right? It's about saying that I'm gonna do whatever that task is that whether it's your job or your vocation, your actual vocation, or something, or a vocation or an occupation, it doesn't matter. The point is that you're saying, I really want to achieve that particular thing, and that becomes the focus more than living life right now and enjoying life.
Well,
right now.
and again, like when you're talking about people being happy, it's what I mean. You're talking to people that they studied over 86 years on what their regrets were and what made them happy. And it never was, oh, my job made me happy. Like it really wasn't. When they look back in hindsight, and again, if you can learn this now before you get to that place and look back in hindsight, they did another experiment in Chicago. And they took because in Chicago, it's a lot of commute.
Right.
So they took half the people and they said, do what you usually do when you commute. Get on your phone, get on your iPad, read your book, whatever you do that. You guys put your phones away, put your iPads away. You guys all have to strike up conversations with one another.
Oh, interesting.
And they did that the whole commute and whatever. Then they got off and they asked them all individually, like, how do you feel? Whatever. I'm going to work. I'm going to go grab my coffee. How do you feel with the people that had to actually communicate with one another? They all said they felt energized. They felt invigorated. They felt like they made a connection with someone. And they said, and a lot of them just said it was even superficial talk. It was almost like they were just saying, oh, the weather is really great today. And it's weird. It was so sunny yesterday. But then it opened the door to other conversations. And they were just like, they felt refueled.
That is
and
really
sometimes
fun.
It is. And, and I'm an introvert and I have a very, very hard time. We've talked about this before, striking conversation with people that I don't know. But I did it this morning when I went to get my egg bites.
Really?
Instead of sitting in my car and scrolling, waiting for my egg bites to be ready, I said, I'm leaving my phone in the car. I'm going to get out. And there's like 4 or 5 people standing there waiting for they're not, I don't know if they ordered egg bites, but
everybody orders egg bites.
They were standing outside and I see them every day. Like every Friday I go get them and I see people standing out there, but I'm like, I'm not going to go stand out there. And even if I do go stand out there because mine isn't ready, I don't talk to them. And so today I made it a point. I walked up and they're all like, want to watch me walk up. And I'm like, good morning. And then I did. And they go, and they just looked at me and they go, good morning. And I go, I hate the weather. I go, it was so sunny on Monday and Tuesday. And now this is so cold. I cannot stand it. I was ready for spring and summer. And then one girl was like, oh, I know. I was wearing a sundress on Tuesday and today I'm wearing a sweater. And then the guy was like, I never even think about it. I'm in an office all day. Who cares? And the next thing you know, we were talking. And so it was just really interesting because I was like, I felt so much better. Well, first of all, I felt better that I stepped out of my comfort zone. But then I felt so much better getting in a car, driving to work.
That
it was
is
like
so good.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. So I know. So I was very, very happy with what I wanted to talk about because especially today where everybody's so wrapped up in their phones and you can even go to dinner with your family and look across the room or even at your own table and see people on their phones.
Oh, it's so
You know
crazy.
what I mean?
Patty and I try to have a date night on Saturdays. Oh, no, we don't. on Wednesdays. On Wednesdays. We try to have a date night on Wednesdays. And we typically go out. And it's interesting when people watch sometimes. And there's just people on their phones. There's so many people on their phones.
Well, and that goes to show when you see that they say, oh, depression is up high right now. And there's so much depression with the young kids. What happened to kids having fun? And now there's depression. And because there's not a lot of relational things happening, because they're so
we don't
tied
embrace
to
the relationships the same way
they're
we used to.
electronics.
And what's interesting is that Instagram, Facebook, etc., they all are false relationship
it's
because
the
everybody
highlight
thinks
reel of life,
right.
And it's not.
And so it's like, well, I post things. What are you talking about? And people comment, and I respond. But that is so very different than
Yeah.
an actual conversation where you're listening to the person and their tone and what they're saying and how they're saying
Yes.
it, and embracing that. And I would even go one step further. I think that phone calls are good, but it's really nice when you can see the person.
Yeah.
And so of course virtual would be better, but even the best thing is the actual intimate connection.
Yes. And that was something that to leave everybody with, so we can kind of wrap it up. It's like, if you struggle with that, if you struggle, like I don't have that issue at all. Cause I feel like, especially with my husband, we have a great relationship and we have a really good communicative relationship. And I have that with my children. I have that with you guys. So, but I think that if I were looking at the study and I was wrapped up in my work and I didn't tap into a lot of relationships, I think that's where I would step out of my comfort zone, or like we talked about last podcast, who is the person that might need to seek therapy. I think that if that was a struggle for me, I think I might find a therapist to help me figure out why I'm not connecting with someone.
Well, that is a great thing, because I think it is important for us to be able to connect. I will say I'm very grateful, despite all my negative things that go on in my life and things that I've done. My kids, for whatever reason, like to be with me.
Yeah.
You
That's
do like to
huge.
be with me, right?
I don't know why either.
Yeah. She said, I don't know why
No,
either.
it's huge.
But we like to be together. We like to spend time together. We go away for weekends. We go on vacations together.
Yeah.
Who does that? Can
Right.
you imagine going on vacation with our mom and dad? I can with my mom, since I did take her to Europe. But the real thing is that I couldn't imagine being 19 and saying, let's go on vacation.
Yeah.
And we've done vacations, and I love spending time with my family. And what's interesting is it's not just about family, though, because it's easy to say, well, yeah, you're right. I want to get married and want to have my kids. But no, it's really about relationships, because I don't think my relationships with my kids would be where they are currently if it wasn't for the relationship that I have with a friend named Kevin, a friend named Tom, a friend named Chet, other friends that I have.
Connections.
Where
Yeah.
I have connections where I can share things that are deep and personal and real. They know me in ways that even my family doesn't necessarily know me. And we are able to, and I'm able to have that intimacy, and that's not something I've always had.
Right.
Right. And
that ties into being authentic. And I think we brought that up before. Like you can't really connect with someone if you're not authentic. You have to be authentic.
yeah. And discovering what that means is trial and error. I mean, meaning there's some risk in it,
Yeah.
and it's not always gonna go well. But you just keep going on.
Right.
We don't just go, well, that didn't work, and then quit.
Right.
Because we definitely want, the idea of having a relationship is a really big deal. So
Yeah.
I
And
love
again,
this
this isn't.
podcast. I
yeah.
really love this.
And-
I'm
but
going to
this-
listen to it again.
No, but again, this isn't relationships. You know, if you're hearing this doesn't mean a relationship with a partner. It could be with any a work person. You know,
Right.
if you're connecting
Well,
with
and
a
I
work,
even love what
it's-
you just said about just connecting with people at
Yeah.
Starbucks,
Yes.
connecting with people in line.
Yes.
Not getting so lost and so
Staring at your phone.
staring at your
and
phone and thinking, well, these relationships are irrelevant. They're not.
Not. And it could brighten a day. You have no idea what one of those 4 people that were standing there needed just to hear someone's human voice. You know what
Right.
I mean? Like you just don't know. And so that for me, I was like, you know what? That felt good. I'm going to do that more often. And
Years ago, long before the phone, cell phone, that is, I read a story where the average person, even the most introverted person, influences 7,000 people.
oh, see, there you go.
And that influence has to do with the people that they see in transportation or when they go to the store
Sure.
or when they're just walking by or whatever it is. But the way you smile or the way you don't smile,
Yeah.
you're influencing
Yeah.
that person.
Yeah.
And the idea is we all influence different people.
Yeah.
And so we can make a choice as to how that
Right.
influence is going to be.
Right. And and honestly, it if you are an introvert, because I am typically an introvert, I'm really trying to step out of that whole category. But if you are that person that just doesn't feel confident in just striking up conversations, like just even a simple like, oh, I like your nail polish. You know what I mean? Or I just know somebody
I'm unlikely to say that.
I know,
but
but I mean, like I remember being in the over spring break. I can't remember where I was. Somebody said something about my outfit, and they just go, "Oh my God, I love your dress," and then they go, "Oh, and the shoes. Oh my gosh, your whole outfit." That was it. Thank you. Walked away, but that just felt good, and it made my day. And there was that human connection. Yeah,
I think the thing is, I think the thing is that we are all longing for connection. And I think we're designed for connection. Of course, there's a famous story of kids. I don't know if you heard about this story, but there's a famous study of kids in an orphanage that were, this is very depressing, and yet my daughter's laughing in the background, but there's a famous story of an orphanage where I believe it was that half of the kids, the orphanage employees really embraced, loved on, took care of, and the other half of the kids they did not touch. Ooh. They only gave them the food and the necessary items that they needed to physically live. Those kids died. Because they needed, we think that the physical connection is something that actually gives us something emotional, but it's actually a necessity for us.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you even think about kids that are born premature and they have to be in an incubator for a while. And a long time ago, it was like you couldn't touch them, you couldn't do anything, and now,
even be in there.
But now they do let at least the parents put the hands in there to be able to touch them and talk to them, and because it is so vital.
It's vital.
Yeah,
it's incredibly important.
Yeah.
All right. Wow, we went long.
I know. Sorry, guys.
No, it's okay. I hope that for me at least, this was I really enjoyed it. Of course, I've had a lot to drink. Just kidding. All right. Well, thank you guys for listening. Did you have any last words since this was your podcast?
I think I said my last words, but then we kept going on.
I know. So yeah. So embrace people, embrace life. And this is I guess the key is that was happiness. What?
Yes.
Talk to strangers. Yeah, that's what your
Don't
mom say
to
that to your kids.
strangers.
Say that to your kids. That's gonna embrace.
I think of that Rick Springfield song, isn't that?
Rick
Springfield. Don't talk to strangers, baby. Don't you talk.
Isn't that Bruce Springsteen? Is it? Wait,
No, I think it's Rick Springfield. I don't know. I'll look it up and put it in the show notes.
By the way, hey, Iggy did look it up. Johnny Carson had 4 divorces. 4 divorces. One of the richest men in the world.
Oh, so he's
4 wives, I mean.
Oh. Okay.
And so 4 divorces. That's just a sad thing for me. I mean, you said 4 divorces, right?
4 wives.
4 wives.
Here we go.
4 wives.
Don't talk to strangers. Rick Springfield.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Thanks for being here, you guys. Talk to you next week.
I'm Benny at Benny Gonzalez on Instagram.
And I'm Valerie at A Daily Dose of Cocoa.
Yeah, so we're very glad you're with us. Please push like or subscribe or whatever you're listening to us on YouTube or on Spotify. We're very glad you're with us.
Yes. Thank you so much. And thank you, Iggy.
Thank you, Iggy, so much.
All right. Bye.
Ciao.